My name is Chelsea. My course is Politics and International Relations. I'm a final year student. So I'm originally from London, Southwest London specifically. I went to two schools before coming to university. I went to a Catholic secondary school, all girls, for the most part of my education experience. And then I decided to, branch out a bit. And then that was initially in Wimbledon. And then after that, I went to essentially on the other side of London. I went to a kind of like an inner city school in Peckham. That was a sixth form college. I went there from 16 to 18. Socially wise, I've met a lot of people, different type of people, especially being in London, it's always very diverse. Religion wise, back in London, I go to a church, a Pentecostal church, and here in Nottingham, I go to a church as well, Heart Church, which is a Catholic Pentecostal Evangelist Church on Nottingham campus, which is a bit different. They don't have their own site yet, but yeah, it's really cool. But other than that, yeah, I would say that my lifestyle-wise prior to starting university has been great. And coming to university, I feel like it just elaborated even more further. So one of my main passions, obviously being originally from quite a lower socioeconomic backgrounds. I did grow up on a council estate for most of my life prior to moving to Vauxhall, which is where I live now, and compared to Vauxhall where I originally lived, culturally wise and just quality wise, it's significantly different. And I told myself once I grow up, I do want to be in a role where I can essentially give back to my community that I grew up in, be in a role where people like me who may have statistically not been able to go to higher education, get good jobs, they can actually flourish and they can have opportunities just the same as everyone else. So one of my passions is essentially doing a role that gives back, doing a role that makes a difference, not a role that necessarily earns a lot, but a role that the quality overcomes the quantity. So I chose to go to university because I felt like academically wise, I've never necessarily done bad in education. I've always relatively enjoyed education, and being from my background, especially seeing my peers who have gone in completely other directions, it kind of like motivated me more to stay on a route where I felt like was more safer, a route that I felt like would give me more opportunities. And university, it was always kind of like an end goal for me, purely because of the academic side and also because of like the social side and also the networking side. My background, I don't feel like I've met people that can essentially elevate me from a career point of view. And I felt like going to university, having opportunities, meeting other peers, networking, just speaking to different various people and essentially put myself out there, beyond my council estate back in London. I feel like that would just elevate me in a sense of a career perspective, academic perspective, social perspective. So university was always the core goal. And Nottingham, specifically, I wanted to come to Nottingham because I came to the campus and weirdly enough, it did remind me of London a bit, just like the area-wise, the people that I met. I was thinking if I'm going to move out, which was always a plan to move out of London, I want to go to a uni that is quite similar to London because London just has so much things. It's just so really accessible in terms of just the things we get and the transport and just stuff like that. So I wanted to go to somewhere which was not too different. And also I wanted a blend because I didn't want a high city life for the rest of my life. I did want like a more of a countryside feel, and I feel like Nottingham has a great blend of both. So I was like, why not Nottingham? And yeah, so that's why I came. Yeah, I did have a few preconceptions. The main preconception would definitely be the type of people that I'd meet. Going to university, higher education, you think that it would be people of like a higher caliber, a bit snooty, bougie, or whatnot. And I feel like I wouldn't be able to relate to those type of people. But literally coming to university, there's a range of people from a range of backgrounds, and even the people that are necessarily like private school kids or, a bit more higher on the socioeconomic level, even those guys are great. So I've been able to literally speak to anybody and everybody, and I think that was definitely a preconception that I had, but university, especially Nottingham, has definitely proven that wrong. So my most memorable experience of my first week of university was definitely just being in the whole university, being in the whole university environment. it was crazy. It was like a big culture shock, just in terms of the amount of people that were there, the campus. It was like a realization that wow, I'm really at this new chapter of life. And yeah, I would say also just the Freshers Week, the fairs, the free pizza, the just literally meeting different types of people. That was definitely my most memorable week. And also the social aspect. Lots of things were going on. The group chats. It was just great. As to how much I could do in the space of a week was fun. But yeah, that was definitely my most memorable experience. Yeah, so I stayed at Raleigh Park for first year, and we have like a community room where literally all the people that stay on the accommodation can come in. And I remember us having like a type of lock-in night. This was more for like based on the society. It was I used to be a part of the African Caribbean Society, and they had a lock-in night on Raleigh Park, and it was essentially for the whole night. We were in that little community room, we were having debates, we were watching movies, eating, literally just getting to know one another. And I feel like that was a great way to meet more people beyond my accommodation, beyond my course. And yeah, that was fun. I was on Nottingham Citizens, which is essentially a community organising group. And this was during the time, this was in second year when the pandemic was happening and we were all on lockdown. And I remember this was the height of the moment was like the George Floyd killing. And I literally remember being at home on my bed, on my phone, just feeling helpless because the Black Lives Matter movement was literally like skyrocketing. The George Floyd conflict happened, and I was thinking like, what can I do as like a Black British person, young person, educated person, living in London? What can I do? And I remember searching up placements for the uni, and the Nottingham Citizen was essentially advertising that they were doing like a racism campaign, mental health campaign, better learning campaign. And I was thinking that's literally for me. Like I feel like I can join this, try and give back, provide my input, get literally other inputs from fellow students. So that's what I did. I ended up joining that. We met weekly online, I think it was via Teams, and we essentially just spoke about everything, spoke about what we can do, how we can build the morale for our fellow students, because lockdown was quite a trying time for everyone, and literally just finding solutions as to way to just maintain a morale, maintain people's mental health. It was definitely a rewarding experience, and I loved every moment of it. Definitely being surrounded by a more culture, as opposed to literally where I lived, it was near a market, and I could literally go down to the market and buy African oriented products, and buy stuff, hair products and stuff like that. So it was definitely the more bustling culture. Nottingham, there is places in Nottingham which replicates that, but being in London, specifically areas like Brixton, Peckham, the culture is bustling. Like there's so many people, there's so many things that you can buy access to. But yeah, Nottingham is great. I feel like it was definitely a great time for me to essentially branch out and widen my horizons. But the culture back in London is like, it's unrivaled. So it's definitely something I missed. But Nottingham hasn't been too exceptionally different from that. Just literally meeting people from that culture is in a different environment. It hasn't been too bad as well. I'm torn between Portland building, was essentially like the central building. Portland has everything, from careers to societies to shops and places just to literally just chill, unwind. And I definitely like the diversity that Portland brings, because literally so many students are there. The environment is so much more chilled as opposed to other environments on campus, like libraries. I love libraries, but they're definitely more for like a studying type of vibe. Portland's definitely the most like chilled, laid back vibe on campus, just to catch up with course mates, friends. So it's definitely between Portland and also the lake. I just love the lake in the summer. It's just so picturesque, just looking at everything, the ducks, the bunnies. I know that people go on rowing during the summer. Hopefully I can do that as well. And yeah, I just love how peaceful the lake brings. It's really tranquil. So it's between Portland and the lake for me. The best thing to do is definitely it's type of like a restaurant called Bunk. Bunk is great. It's like it's in the city, and it's I would say it's definitely the most student-friendly place out of Nottingham. Bunk it's great because of just the vibe, the energy it brings, the prices. You can literally get like student-friendly prices, chips, chicken, and sometimes they come in bundles as well. And literally the music that it brings. Like Bunk is like a mixture between like a not necessarily like a nightclub, but like a place where you can go listen to music, but also catch up with friends and eat. And it's literally like dotted around the city. I think there's like 3 bunks in the city. So Bunk is literally the best place that I used to go to throughout first year to third. Yeah, just to catch up with friends. The best thing about living at a university is essentially finding more about yourself in terms of what your limits are, what your capabilities are. Essentially the independence that it brings. University is just the type of place where you can literally find out who you are as a person. I feel like I've definitely changed from first year to third year, being in this environment, living alone, navigating alone, academically, socially. So yeah, and I feel like if I had gone another route, I definitely feel like I wouldn't, in a cliche type of word, I wouldn't be the person I am today, just because of all the trials and tribulations that university bring. I feel like it just made me more refined as a character. So the independence aspect of university was definitely necessary. It was hard, but I feel like it's really rewarding at the end. I would say the best thing about you being a university Nottingham student is essentially that I'm a part of like a diverse community, and not necessarily from like a demographic point of view, but there's literally so many ranges of people in terms of what people like, their sexuality, what they like to do musically. I feel like Nottingham, especially for academic uni, it boasts so many artistic people, which is great, because I definitely art is definitely a side that I'd always wanted to pursue, but I always wanted to stick to the academic route. And Nottingham has like a bit of everything. You know, there's people that do music, there's people that act, you know, there's people that do radio shows, and literally Nottingham boasted all these diverse people and people feeling like they're comfortable enough to essentially be themselves and be whoever they want to be. It's just a great uni to come to and be a part of that environment. I would say the best thing about my course is how broad and diverse the content is. From second and third year, the scope that you're able to learn at is you're very flexible in what you pick, the modules. And I would say the type of modules that I was able to pick, they reflect literally society, and I feel like they're so relevant. Currently doing a module about ethnic conflict, racism, white supremacism. I'm currently doing another module about terrorism, and another module about spies. So it's like it's crazy that politics boasts such a broad range, and every time I tell someone I'm a politics student, they never realize how broad and diverse politics can be. And literally I just learned a lot, and I'm always kept up to date because of my course. It's definitely made me more passionate about everything that goes on in society, and it's crazy how much we learn links back to society and how I can use it to adapt to society and be better in society. So I love the learning factor of politics. I have felt supported, even literally from the moment that I stepped into uni, just the community that it boasted, even the student ambassadors. I remember coming to university by myself, and I remember there was this one student ambassador that noticed that, and she literally like stayed with me throughout the whole day. So from like the very first day, I already felt like I was in a bubble where I could feel supported. I would also say literally just being a part of communities, because I am a Christian, I am Black, literally being a part of those many communities, they've literally helped support me and boast me up, regarding just obviously the adversities that come with university and society in general. And then also my seminar tutors, they're great as well. They've always made sure to emphasize that they are accessible. You can access them via email, you can access them via the office hours. So I've never felt like I've not had nobody to talk to. And the university, they also emphasize, you know, you can literally use the careers, you can use, there's mental health facilities as well. So, and literally during the pandemic, the university was like sending us like welfare emails, you know, literally just checking up on us. So I've never felt not supported at this uni for sure. I would say, can I say my mom? I would say my mom. My mom's inspired me the most throughout my studies, literally because I am the first to go to university. So navigating university, and I am the oldest child as well. So navigating university for the first time ever, my mom was definitely a backbone. She was definitely a motivator because she essentially, throughout my life, she's always wanted the best for me. And university, especially when there was hard times at university, and even though I did have my communities to rely on, my she knows me the most, and literally just falling back on her, whether it's just for like comfort, even financial assistance. Like she doesn't have necessarily a high paying job, and yet she always found a way to provide for me and to help me and to motivate me. So it was definitely my mom throughout my university experience that's been my backbone. And yeah, she's been the person that I inspire to be like, to remain how humble she's been, to remain how hardworking she's been among 3 kids. Her oldest, navigating a place like university by herself. Even though she doesn't even know what university entails, she's found a way to still be really helpful and to provide. So my mom's my biggest influence, for sure. I used to be a part of African Caribbean Society. It was essentially a society which highlights African Caribbean students, but anybody can join. And essentially a society to just embrace and uplift those students within the society, because we are essentially the minority. And I feel like with African Caribbean Society, it's just been quite an empowering place just to be surrounded by people that necessarily understand the struggles that I go through, just someone that I can rely on, but also just a place to embrace culture. And even though it's not necessarily just for African Caribbean students, other students from other cultures, they've come in, and just seeing them embrace our culture and, just be in love with our culture it's a very pleasant thing to see. So yeah, they've had loads of events, they've had loads of meetups and, lock-ins, as I said. And yeah, it's just literally just been a great being in a space surrounded by people that love and appreciate the culture. The best thing I've discovered about myself is how resilient I am, in the sense that I've never been in a space where I haven't known anybody. Going to from going to a secondary school in Wimbledon, I've literally grown up with girls that I've known from areas surrounding Wimbledon. So literally from primary, I grew up with girls from primary into secondary. Sixth form, even though it was a completely new sixth form, I still had 1 or 2 people that I knew. So university, I was literally the only person from my sixth form to go to University of Nottingham. So being in a space where I completely don't know anybody was really, really daunting. And I never had the need to essentially put myself out there and meet new people. And it was scary in the first instance because being alone and essentially being in a city where nobody knows who you are is really scary. But the resilience that I had in the sense of continuing to put myself out there, even though it came to no avail at sometimes, in the first stages, I feel like in the first term of university, I didn't make any secure friends. But the fact that I literally put myself out there, spoke to people, and believe it or not, I actually have really bad anxiety. So literally going to Nottingham by myself was another factor. Like I was scared that my anxiety would get the better of me, but I overcame that in terms of just literally putting myself out there and just being resilient in the sense of meeting people, even if it came to a dead end, continuing to meet people, continue to speak to people, just show people who I am. So my resilience in that sense, yeah. Definitely the networking aspect, literally knowing how to speak to people, knowing how to just the way you approach and speak to people at university, because there's so many different people from different backgrounds, it's really important to know how to appeal to them, how to speak to them, what to not to say and what to say when you're speaking to new people. So yeah, university has definitely equipped me for the outside world, just knowing how to speak to people and knowing how to just create meaningful relationships with people, whether it's a deep relationship, whether it's like a lukewarm relationship, but just a relationship regardless with different types of people, not necessarily people that you always speak to every day, but literally just branching yourself out, speaking to people of different backgrounds and cultures. I have a current module, it's called ethnic conflict, the politics of ethnic conflict, and it's essentially talking about different ethnicities, how we as a people identify ourselves in the UK and throughout the world, and essentially our identity. And what has taught me in those in that module was essentially like racism does exist, institutional racism, essentially conflict, prejudice, those concepts do exist, but learning how to navigate through that, learning the solutions and the policies that you can implement to navigate through that to overcome that has definitely equipped me for essentially the career path that I want to go into post uni. So and it's also been really enlightening. There's a lot of instances where I didn't know how deep rooted some issues in other countries were, as opposed to your ethnicity, as opposed to how you look like. So it's definitely been like an enlightening module, and it's definitely something that I'm going to take on and adapt to. And it's also made me equipped, especially as like a Black woman, it's made me equipped for whatever circumstances and obstacles that I do face in society as well. I would say the most demanding thing would be definitely deadlines, which is actually quite a funny thing. It's been deadlines, purely because I'm a person, I've always stuck to deadlines well, but literally nobody realized how much comes out of university other than the academic side, just the social aspects, literally keeping on top of deadlines and actually having a student life has been really challenging. And I've learned that yes, university is really important, but it's all about time management, to be fair. I feel like I'm a big believer that you need to get the full experience out of university beyond academics, because university brings so much. So it's definitely been how to maintain my deadlines and balance a social life. But yeah, it's all about time management. It's all about priority, and literally just learning how to prioritize time management, make a timetable, if you will, has been the most helpful in terms of just navigating how to do both. I would say my future looks bright. I would say my future looks bright in the sense that I am really, really passionate about going into a role that gives back. So, and I'm really passionate about making a difference. I already have a mentor, I have two mentors, in fact. I have two mentors in government already, and they have been really helpful as to how equipping me with this big step between uni and work life. And I've told both of them that I want to go into a role where I can give back, where I can make a difference, where I can represent people from a background like mine. So whatever that role may be, whether how little it is, how big it is, it needs to be impactful, and it needs to reach a national or group of people that can change. So I would say my future, it just something that is humanitarian, something that is worthwhile and it's fulfilling and it fulfills my purpose, because I am a Christian as well. So it fulfills my purpose from a spiritual perspective, but it also fulfills my purpose from a societal perspective. I don't feel like whatever I do post uni will be in vain. It's always going to be for a purpose, and it's always going to be for a good purpose. So my future, I would like to think, is bright. I feel like my Nottingham degree definitely exemplifies a girl that has gone through multiple life experiences from primary to university. I feel like my Nottingham degree is essentially kind of like my final lap. Essentially, I would say that the degree, it just shows that I've made through all the trials and tribulations that I've been through, all the obstacles, all the instances where I couldn't have gone to uni, I couldn't have finished my GCSEs, I couldn't have finished my A-levels. The Nottingham degree essentially exemplifies that you have made it, you've done well. Like literally congratulations on literally overcoming everything that was thrown at you. So it's just essentially a symbolic to all the hard work that I put in throughout my life. And yeah, that's what I would say it exemplifies. My dream would be to be in a position where people can essentially always rely on, like, not necessarily like a politician role, but more of like a humanitarian level role. So maybe something in the UN, maybe something more minuscule, like maybe like a civil servant or something like that. Like my dream would be essentially to be a person that people can always look to and always know that you can rely on her. Like she will actually pull through, and she's not doing it just for show, and she's not doing it just for money. She's doing it because she genuinely cares about the well-being of every person in society. And definitely just being in a role where I can do that, and I can essentially show everyone that they're, people from my background, people from being who I am, it's not like an end all be all, like, you can actually be successful in the world. So yeah, my dream would just basically be in a position where I can be a good representation of what being a good human should be like. Yeah.